Hello everyone and welcome to Tychus Teaches You Stuff. Today we're going to talk about part 2 of the Fletching series, customizations. We will be going over the various woods you can use and where to get them, as well as painting and banding, fletching, which fletchings you can use, and how to use a fletching razor, and then we will touch on attaching caps and arrowheads. Let's get right into this. The first and easiest method of customizing your arrows is to choose a different variation of wood. I'm here in the Landings Fletcher shop, and if we use the order command, you will see that the backroom catalog carries 6 varieties of wood. I believe that each town will carry a slightly different inventory, so you can check those out for yourself. The 6 here in the landing are Carmelin, Faywood, Ironwood, Cacor, Rowan, and Vilswood. Getting backroom access is not difficult, but you will have to make somewhere between 80 and 100 individual purchases. I did this by purchasing 85 or so individual arrows, so that cost me about 85 total silver. So it's not hard, it's a little time consuming, but not difficult. Once you do have backroom access, these sticks, branches, and limbs are treated just like plain wood is for the making process, and you will split these into shafts and then follow the normal process as in the first video. The second way to customize your arrows is going to be through the use of paint. We have a couple options here. We can paint the entire arrow by using a vial of paint, or we can crest the arrow with bands using paint sticks. This is the order menu from the Fletcher shop once again, and you'll see that number 20 is a vial of paint, and then there are 6 choices of paint sticks. You'll notice that number 20, a vial of paint, does not have a specific color. If you choose that option and then choose customize, you will get a drop down menu which gives you your choices for paint. Once again, the vial of paint will paint the entire arrow, and the paint sticks only crest the arrows with bands. We'll go through that process here. So I've already purchased inky black paint, and I have an arrow in my hand. The command for this is pretty simple. It is paint my shaft with my paint. That will give you a message and some round time. On top of the round time, there is also a drying period. There's nothing you can do to the arrow during this period, so you just kind of have to wait it out. If we take a look at our shaft, my shaft, you'll see that you'll get the message that the arrow has been pared down, a coat of paint has been applied, and the paint is still wet. This is one way to figure out whether it's wet, or you can just wait for, there it is, the drying messaging to come up. The paint on your arrow has dried. At this point, you can move on to the next step, which would be nocking your arrows. This step falls after your initial pairing and before you have cut nocks into the arrow. At this point, if we completed this process with no changes from here on out, we would end up with an inky black, in this case, Carmelin arrow. If you are hunting in an area that somebody else is using arrows similar to yours, it can get confusing, at least the same materials. So we do have the option to flip the arrow, flip my shaft, and what that'll do is it'll allow you to switch which words are used as the material. So in the case of the one we are holding, it is currently an inky black Carmelin shaft, and by flipping it like we just did, you'll see now that it is shaft color followed by its materials and then followed by its projector style. So it would be an inky black Carmelin arrow, but if we flip it again, we will now see that it is a material projectile style shaft color. which I don't understand this wording, but if we had followed this out, we would end up with a carmine inky black arrow, which I've made two, so you can see the difference here. There you can see the difference. A carmine inky black arrow versus an inky black carmine arrow. That's for convenience. So you can choose the order of the wording there if it becomes a problem at some point with gathering and the quirks of the gather command. Like, once again, this comes after pairing and before cutting nocks. Our other option we have here is to paint bands onto the arrow. So let's put away our paint here. Let's stow my paint and get my paint stick. All right, you'll see that I've already purchased a white paint stick, and now I am holding a paint stick and a shaft. So at this point we have a black arrow. We're going to put a white crest on it. The command is exactly the same. We will paint my shaft with my paint. The process is just like before. We get round time. We also get the drying time, which we have to wait for. If we look at the shaft now, you'll see that it is pared down like before. You can see our coat of black paint, and now it looks like someone has painted a single white band on the end. You have the option at any point to put up to 2 bands. I shouldn't say at any point. At this point, you have the option to put up to 2 bands. You can put 1 or you can put 2. They have to be different colors if you choose to. While the coat of paint, the vial of paint, covers the entire shaft and will show up in the short description. Painting crests or bands onto the arrow only show up in this long description, and you won't actually see them unless you show or look at your own arrows. So that covers it for paint pretty much. You buy paint at the Fletcher, you apply it with the command of paint my shaft with my paint, and you have the option of painting the entire shaft or painting bands, or like in this case we have done essentially both. Our next opportunity to customize our arrows is going to be through the use of fletchings. This is a little more involved process, being that you have to gather some creature skins that use the noun of feather. There's a few places to get those. We have cockatrice, which the plain, plumed, and snowy varieties will all work. Black wing daggerbeaks, blood eagles, storm griffins, dreadnought raptors, colossal vultures, and wing vipers will all work, as well as a few strange ones. The green parrot on Four Winds Island, the raven that flies around the Ravenswood neighborhood in the landing, and the lost penguin chick will all occasionally drop feathers, which you can gather up and use for this process. Another great place to get fletchings is through merchants, and in those situations they often will allow your arrows to flare, elemental flares or acid flares, or any of the normal 17 flares that we're able to use. And also sometimes, and extremely rarely, you can get a hold of a fletching razor that adds that flaring ability to any of the fletchings that you cut. Today we will be just using cockatrice feathers. They're easy to get, and they'll serve for this purpose. If we take a look, you can see that I have a cockatrice feather and a fletching razor. The razor is easily and cheaply purchased at the fletching shop, same place all your supplies are. You need to open your razor if it's not already. I don't know if mine is or not. It's already open. If it's not open and you try to use it, it'll tell you to open it. And then after that, it's as simple as cut my feather with my razor, and this will cut the feather into 4 even fletchings, which you then use in the normal process. It's as simple as that. Our final opportunity for customization is going to be through the use of arrowheads or caps. In the case of arrows, you will use arrowheads. In the case of darts, you will use caps. And if you are making crossbow bolts, you will have the option either way you can choose. Arrowheads and caps are available through the fletching shop, just like everything else. We can see we have mithril, aura, imflash, and voltite available here in the landing. and they will add their associated enchantment to the arrow, up to, I should say that the highest enchant that's available that you've used. So if you've used plus 20 wood and you choose Voltite caps, you do not get plus 40 arrows. It just is the highest enchant of the part that you used. So in our case, we are using Carmelin wood, which is plus 6, and then we will use a Voltite arrowhead, which is plus 20. It does not give us plus 26. It just takes the highest enchant of the pieces parts that you use. So keep that in mind. The process is fairly simple. I have a steel drill in my hand as well as the arrow shaft, and it is as simple as turn my drill, and that will drill a tip in the end of the arrow. It'll give you the messaging and some round time. We can stow our drill, get our arrow, I think from my harness. There we go, and then turn my arrowhead, and there it is. You turn the arrowhead, you're going to get, once again, you've got round time. Every step of this takes round time. But we can see if we glance down in our hands that we have an inky black arrow in our right hand. You do not see the banding. You do not see the type of tip that we used unless we look at arrow. And then we can see in this pretty in-depth description exactly what you've made. This arrow has been crafted from inky black Carmelin. A single colored band of white encircles the back end of the arrow. At the very back end, snowy white cockatrice feathers stand out. And on the business end, the Voltite triangle bladed arrowhead glints in the ambient light. And you will see here it says a small enchanter's glyph. I believe that's actually not supposed to be there because nobody did enchant this, but this has to do with the fact that these are master crafted arrows because I have all 500 ranks, and it adds an additional plus 5 to the arrows. The only other odd things that you might be able to do to the arrows, I know that there are boxes, altering boxes out there that you can put an arrow and a gem in, and it will inset a gem into the arrow. As well as arrow scribes, which will allow you to either carve your initials into the arrow or carve some sort of a glyph into the arrow. But other than that, I think we have hit all of the customization options. We went through woods, we went through fletchings, we went through paint, and we went through adding caps and arrowheads. Well, that is it for part 2 of the Fletching series. I hope you have enjoyed it and found it interesting. If that is the case, please like, subscribe, drop a comment down below. My name is Tychus, and this has been Tychus Teaches You Stuff. I hope you have a great day.